I am just now realizing I put these books in the wrong order. Oh well. Hello my lovely friends, it's Margaret. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my favorite books of 2022. These are all books that I have loved this year with a passion. I was worried for a minute at the beginning of the year that I wasn't going to have any books, or I wasn't going to have a lot of books to really be excited about. And then like September through December of this year happened and I read, I think, hold on, 9 of these books did I read in the latter half of 2022. In fact, some of these I did read in the last week of the year. They are not in any particular order. A lot of this video is just how much did I love the book, how well was the book written, which one is going to end out on top when I sit down to talk about them. I am actually glad I did take a couple of days to let my thoughts about things simmer, and I'm also glad that I took a look at some of the other things that I read earlier this year, because there were a couple of books that I did enjoy. The first book that we need to talk about is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This beat out some of my 5-star reads on here, which probably means I need to change my rating. This was so well written. We are following a main character who is a young native teen. She's spent most of her high school years being the weird girl who's obsessed with horror movies, and part of that is because she kind of looks at life like it is a slasher film. She takes some of the stuff that she sees, the things she sees repeated on slashers, the things she's learned about slashers, and she kind of just applies them to her life, and she is seeing, as certain events are happening in her small town, that she may be in her very own real life slasher. The way that Stephen Graham Jones was able to explain and use slashers in his plot, I didn't feel like I was missing out for not having seen any of these movies. I felt like I understood what the different references were saying about character, plot, the themes of the novel without having to have seen the original material, because he explained it and worked it in so well. I think she's a fantastic example of what an unreliable narrator is. I think she is a fantastic example of kind of being the odd one out in amongst the high school that you go to or the group that you are in. There are a whole bunch of just different things that are coming together to tell you why Jade is the way she is, and it's very clever how Stephen Graham Jones is both telling you the plot from the events happening around Jade and also the plot from Jade's point of view and how those kind of come together. I was super excited to find out that this is going to be a trilogy, and I'm interested to see where we're going to take that. This is definitely for those of you that like something a little supernatural in your thrillers. If you're looking for a Scooby-Doo type thing, this isn't it. This is just weird and gory and bloody and very good. The next book is one that I read for my Reading Dark Academia vlog, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a book that is following a group of, I think, 5 people that are in this very prestigious, very secluded school, and they are theater students there. There's a lot of Shakespeare talk, there's a lot of theater talk, and all of it was fantastic for me to be reading. We know from the beginning that our main character, Oliver, has spent 10 years in jail for the murder of someone, and the detective thinks that he actually took the fall for someone else, that he was not the one, but he ended up being the one that went to jail, paid the time, and the detective is like, I'm retired, someone has paid the time, I want to know what actually really happened. And then Oliver sitting down and kind of explaining that year leading up to the murder and then his arrest. I adored this. This was, for someone who did theater in school, the way that this was structured so closely to an actual Shakespearean tragedy just blew me away. I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed all the little theater references, the random Shakespeare quotes that we would have, the way he did the professors at Oliver's school was hilarious. All of them had different traits from different teachers that I had when I was at doing theater at UF. It just was really funny, seeing, oh yeah, I remember that was in this professor, and that was this professor, and we had a professor that did that too, and that. It was really fun to just kind of go through and live the nostalgia of my theater days. I highly recommend it. This is probably the best written Dark Academia that I have read this year. We'll see if I can find anything that can top it. There's one up top that I think think might. The next book that we need to talk about is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is about Mara. She is the youngest of 3 sisters. We find her as she has gone to a dust witch to try and find a magical way to free her sister from the prince her sister is married to. Mara has realized that this prince is very abusive, but there's also not a lot that they can do because it is a much larger kingdom. There will be huge repercussions for the people in her kingdom. It could lead to war, but also her sister is in this very, very bad situation. She's trying to find a way that she can free her sister from this without having to have those negative effects on her kingdom. It is very much like in the vein of Grimm's fairy tales. It is almost like a dual timeline. We catch up with Mara at the beginning as she's in the middle of 2 of her 3 impossible tasks, and then we follow her from there, like going in present day, but also having flashbacks to the past so that we kind of can see what's happening with her sister, how her sister got in this situation, how she got in the situation that she is in. She spent the last half of her life as a nun because the prince doesn't want her to marry and like threaten his kingdom. You can tell that T. Kingfisher really knew her fairy tales and her folklore because she does this just fantastic kind of modern fairy tale almost. I'm sure there are parallels, but like it very much feels like its own kind of thing. She created this brand new fairy tale out of the elements in the plot of this book. I absolutely adored it. I had so much fun reading it, and yeah, it's fantastic and you should pick it up. The next book we're going to talk about is very different in tone, but I absolutely adored it, and that is Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho. We follow Elena in this book, and her best friend moved away to Korea when they were 10, and he ended up becoming like a very famous K-pop idol and stopped talking to Elena. However, when they were 10, they did make a promise that they were going to go to their senior prom or junior prom together, that they would go to prom together. I think this is her junior year, and he comes back to keep that promise. This was absolutely adorable. I had so much fun reading this book. Elena is such a sincere but also messy character. She just was all over the place in a way that felt very real and authentic to me as a person who is also all over the place. I really appreciated the way that we saw their little relationship that they had, their little friendship that they have to be rebuilt after all of these years of him not talking to her. Part of this is about fame and the pressure that puts on people and the unrealistic expectations that fans have on it, or on people who are famous and all of that stuff. It explores all of that, like really serious kind of heavy topics, and then it's got this ridiculous like prom plot that Elena is doing, and it was wonderful, it was heartwarming, it was unserious in places, and it was just a good time. After that, we have The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. This is my most anticipated book of 2022. It started out as a Twitter thread story. It is currently, once again, a Twitter thread story. This is about Winnie Wednesday. She is part of this group of people called the Luminaries. They are made up of 7 families named after the days of the week, and these families ended up stationed in different places around the globe, guarding various like forests where nightmares are waking. These nightmares are magical creatures that are created at night, and there's something going on with like, I don't know if it was ley lines or something, but basically it's like there are sleeping beings in these specific spots that end up coming up in the world, and they are at the most recent one to crop up. Her family is actually currently in exile from the main Wednesday family and the Luminaries as a whole because her father was found out to be a traitor when she was like 10 or 12, and she is now 16, and she has wanted nothing more than to be a hunter, so she decides she is going to go through the hunter's trials even though she hasn't had all of the training she needs, and she is still currently exiled, but the rules don't say anything that exiles cannot. This had the most beautiful, perfect romantic tension between our main character and her love interest, and the way that they kind of have to, again, rebuild a friendship that gets dropped because of things that are not necessarily in their control. I talk about this like it's Gilmore Girls meets, I guess, Buffy, or I guess Supernatural. Probably more Supernatural, but I haven't watched that one. I loved Winnie as a character. I loved, like, she's a little impulsive, a little messy, but I loved how determined she is, and how even when like she doesn't think she can do something, she still tries. And I loved watching her kind of get to be reintegrated into this society that she has been ostracized from, and the things that it tackles for that, and the feelings that it tackles for her. And also there's a whole bunch of like greater mystery that's going on. It's real fun. After that, we have to talk about Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. My heart wanted to put this up much higher on the list, but when I sat down and looked at what I'd read, I was like, Yeah, but there are a couple that I did love more, and there were a couple that I loved that were better written. So, like, and it's a moot point, honestly, because these are all 5 stars at this point. This is about Vanya. She is a girl who, when she was very small, her mother handed her over to death and fortune. They are low gods, and so Vanya grew up with these 2 gods, and then when she got to a certain age, they sent her away to be with the family because she couldn't kind of be in their immortal realm anymore. And then she hits 13, and they're like, hey, you need to serve one of us. You have to choose one of us to serve. And she's like, I don't want to do that. You are my parents. Why are you asking me to do that? And so in an attempt to get away from them and not have to make this decision, she is trying to leave the country, and she is stealing to get the money to do that. That would not be a terrible thing, except she ends up stealing from someone who is also protected by a low god, and that other god curses her so that her body will turn into jewels in like 2 weeks if she does not give back what she has stolen. This is absolutely wonderful. If you're looking for 2 demi-main characters that are like just at odds, but also really respect each other and basically backcat. Like if you want that Bruce Wayne, Selena Kyle dynamic, only they're teenagers and they're in a Slavic fantasy, pick this up. I am always a sucker for the thief versus detective type romance story where they're constantly one-upping each other, and like there are so many surprises, and while they're like, haha, you thought I missed this. I just love that. The banter in this was immaculate. I loved the world building. I loved the characters, and also I love the fact that just being queer at any level is normal in this world. It's just, it exists. And I really think that we need more fiction like that. I enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I would 100% read it again, and I probably will before Painted Devils comes out. After that, we have to talk about the Kaiju Preservation Society. Oops, with the glare. The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This is about some dude. I don't remember his name. His name is not important. What is important is that he works for like this Uber Eats analog that ends up getting bought out by Uber Eats. And so on his last delivery to this kind of regular he has, the regular offers him a job. He's like, hey, I work for an animal rights organization that needs an extra hand. We just had somebody drop out. Would you like to come and be a part of that? And he's like, dude, I need a job. Let's go ahead. Let's do this. And he comes to find out when they get on location, he's actually in an alternate universe. And what they are trying to do is keep the kaiju alive, keep them from being discovered by too many humans, keep them from extincting themselves, from becoming extinct. They are basically big, scaly, dumb pandas. I mean, I guess the pandas part kind of implies the no brain cells. It's hilarious and fantastic. This book is very bare bones. It is a lot of like banter and dialogue between our main character and the people that are on his team, and it's just so much like it's a lighthearted, fun book. It's not anything deep. The author was just like, I wanted to write a pop song, and he did. He wrote a song that has the exact same like feeling as a pop song. It is not a ballad. It is just there to be fun and make you laugh and be enjoyable, and it's just like the way that he is able to take, hold on, how many pages is this? That's the author's note. He takes 258 pages and is able to write this really succinct but also like meaningful and exciting and I don't know, there are words that would explain what this book is and I can't come up with them right now. It just is so much fun, and he does it so well in such a short amount of time. That is always just a really, like, I love me a big chunky fantasy, as you've already seen it, you will see again. I love me a big chunky fantasy, sci-fi, all of that. But it's also really satisfying and nice to see an author that is able to take less than 300 pages and tell a story that is full and complete and doesn't need any more. And the only flaw in this book is that it is not part of a series. I would be down to see what happens to Jamie when he goes back to when it's his time for his next shift. If you're looking for a fun science fiction that is easy to get into and doesn't like it doesn't require a lot of big brain, you're not having to really wrap your mind around a whole lot of like technical jargon and all that stuff, because Jamie is not very technical, and the way that John Scalzi is able to like be like, yeah, here you go, this is what our character understands, therefore this is what you as the reader understand. The way he's able to do that, just, it's so good. All right, the third book, some people are going to get mad at me that it's not, but there were 2 books that not only did I love just as much, but were better written. Third book is Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn. This was such a fantastic way to follow up Legend Born. It was so good. Legendborn, we are following Bree Matthews. She is going to this college, I believe it's North Carolina, Chapel Hill, something like that. It doesn't really matter. We're not at the college right now. She goes there and she ends up seeing some magical stuff that she shouldn't be able to see, and so she gets caught up in this magical secret society that is based around and run by the descendants of King Arthur and his knights. It was created by King Arthur and Merlin so that they would be able to fight the demons that keep trying to come into our world. The first book was so immaculately paced. I loved the world building, I loved the characters, and I still loved a lot of that in here. She still brought that. Unfortunately, this one was a little bit repetitive, which is why it's not higher up on this list, but it's still pretty high up. I just enjoyed this. I loved watching Bree and Sel have to kind of come to peace with each other and like work together, and the way that they get to know each other in this book. I absolutely adored that. I really adored kind of getting more into the background and the depths of why this particular society, the Legendborn society exists. Also getting to know more about the root magic that Bree also possesses. I think it could have been edited just a little bit more strongly to kind of take out some of the repetitive nature or give a different twist to some of the repetitive nature of Bree and Sel's kind of conflict. She wants to be involved, and then Sel wants to protect her, and he doesn't understand that the way he is trying to protect her is kind of removing all of her agency. It is making it so she's not able to do anything, and I can't go into it more than that because it will spoil things in the first book, but having to watch them, and they don't really figure it out. I'm going to be honest, they don't really figure it out by the end of the book, but they're on their way to figuring it out, and then stuff happens. I like watching that. I just think I would have liked to see them actually sit down and have a conversation and acknowledge each other's kind of issues with this, because it got so repetitive, having them come back to the same argument over and over and over again, and then reliving the same argument over and over and over again, like word for word. Still got 5 stars. I still think it's fantastic. I still want the next book, because why Tracy? Why would you do that? Why would you leave us there? I don't. Please. So book number 2 is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a HarperCollins book. So in the hopes that they will have actually sat down and started making a deal, I am going to talk about it. But if they have not, I will have cut out my entire review, and it will be pasted in at some point when I do all of the books I couldn't talk about from HarperCollins during the strike. If you do not know, the union at HarperCollins is on strike. They have been without a contract since last year, and HarperCollins has been refusing to sit down with them and hash out a new contract. They are asking basically just for a $5,000 pay raise, or starting pay raise, that will bring the starting pay up to livable wages in New York City. They're also asking for a couple of diversity initiatives and stuff like that. I will have all of that linked down in the description box regardless of whether or not the strike is still there. There are some videos that I have been done about this, all kinds of stuff. Hopefully by the time we are seeing this, I will actually be able to talk about this book, but if not, you'll see the rest of this in the next, the HarperCollins video that I will be doing when they're finally done being stupid. And the final book that we have to talk about is Leviathan Falls by James S.A. Corey. This is the 9th book in the Expanse series. It wraps up the series. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about, because if you've been on my channel, you know I love this series. There's not much more I can say about this book because there's so much that I could spoil, but I'll just say this, the way that James S.A. Corey is able to take this story through 9 books, the way they are able to take the initial conflict, the inciting incident of book 1, Leviathan Wakes, the way they are able to do that, and then it's 2 authors, by the way, under 1 pen name. But the way they are able to do that and pull it all the way through 9 books, the way they're able to reinvent that initial inciting incident in every single book and then escalate it as we go into some of the further books, just brilliant. The way they're able to take all of the conflicts that they have had in their different books and bring them through and have, it's one of those series that you just sit down and it is a full circle by the time you get to the end of the book, and it connects in ways that you would not have seen coming reading each of the books individually. It's not until you've seen the whole picture that you're going to be like, oh, that's what they were doing. Oh my, like, you're just constantly, especially in the last, like, 3 books, constantly going back to things that have happened. Oh, that's why that happened. That's why that, like, it's so, they are so well done. So beautiful. I also highly recommend this if you're trying to get into science fiction, because I find that it is a very accessible science fiction series. Their focus is more on, on character and plot, and the world building serves both of those. There's not a single place where their world building kind of ends up taking over what's going on. Sometimes it may feel like that, but then it will end up coming back around and tying into the plot and the character of what's going on. So I highly recommend this series. I absolutely adored it, and they did a fantastic job with it. So those are my top 10 books for the year 2022. I had to leave off so many books that I loved and really enjoyed and were 5 stars on this list. So if you want to see some of the honorable mentions, let me know. I'd be happy to make a video about those, but it will have to be later in the month. So I don't know how interested people will be in that. Please let me know what your favorite book of 2022 was, or if you can't decide, give me a top 3. Like 3 books you think I should read. That's what we'll do. Give me 3 books that you loved in 2022 that you think I should read, and maybe I will pick some of those up. If you're interested in my worst books of the year, I will have that linked right over here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!